Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our colleagues and participants from around the world. My name is Sharia Walker. I'm the Senior Youth Development Specialist here at the Islamic Development Bank, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the bank's 9th Annual Youth Development Forum. I'd like to begin with a few housekeeping notes. So as we start the session, here are just a few important notes for you. So this is a live webinar through Zooms, and as attendees, you will be able to engage with us and with our speakers through the Q&A tab. Also, because this is a live event, so the chat will be disabled for attendees. And finally, we also have simultaneous interpretation in English from the Uzbek language. I would also like to request from our speakers to speak clearly in the microphone so that our interpreters can hear you clearly. In addition to that, this webinar will also be live on YouTube. On the chat, we're going to post the YouTube link, so you can head over to YouTube if it's easier for you. And you'll also have the opportunity to chat with us as the chat in YouTube Live will be enabled for your inquiries. And with that, I would like to formally start the event. I'm excited to introduce our MC for this year's event, Jahangir Polatov. He is the founder of Cambridge Learning Center, a graduate from Westminster International University in Tashkent and Moscow School of Management, Skolakov, and he is considered to be a rising entrepreneur in the education sector. With that said, over to you, Jahangir.
Thank you, Sharia. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Dear colleagues, dear participants of today's forum, we are happy to welcome you in Islamic Development Bank Youth Development Forum 2021. And as you know, Youth Development Forum is an important annual event held as a part of the Islamic Development Bank Group annual meeting. And in the past, there were lots of forums, and the main focus were mainly problems of youth. And youth has been addressed in these forums several times from different perspectives. However, this year, the Youth Development Forum will focus on youth engagement. Today's our event will consist of two parts. The first part brings together influential thinkers, policymakers, international development policy experts, and most importantly, youth delegates from different sectors and different countries. And at the same time, in the first part, there will be hot discussion and mainly panel discussion where these speakers will participate. In the second part, of Youth Development Forum, actually there will be some words about importance of partnership, and there will be launch of the Islamic Development Bank UNDP joint knowledge products, state of the ecosystem for youth entrepreneurship and youth-led MSMEs in Bangladesh and Indonesia. This is what today's event is going to bring. And as a tradition, I would like now to move on to the recitation from the Holy Quran. This is going to be the official beginning of today's forum.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.
Okay, then let's start our today's event. To open the forum, I would like now to give Mr. Bukwich. He is Chief Products and Partnership Officer in Islamic Development Bank. Mr. Amir Bukwich, you can start.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, youth activists, experts on youth, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to begin by thanking you for taking the time to join us in today's important annual event, the 9th Youth Development Forum. Welcome everyone from across the globe and esteemed panelists to this year's forum entitled Meaningful Youth Engagement and Skills Enhancement Post-COVID-19, which couldn't be more relevant with regards to the critical issues of our member countries are facing, particularly during the challenging times presented by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Being myself experienced in the youth issues and being a youth leader in the former Yugoslavia, it gives me a special pleasure to be part of the Youth Development Forum. Unfortunately, I am not youth anymore, and now I have to listen. And today I am here to listen. The Youth Development Forum is a flagship annual standing event that takes place on the sideline to the Islamic Development Bank's Group annual meeting. It brings together influential thinkers, policymakers, international development policy experts, and most importantly, youth delegates to address, discuss, and debate critical issues of relevance to young women and men around the globe. COVID-19 pandemic has touched the lives of nearly all the world's population. The disruptions posed by school closures, economic shutdowns, and social distancing have imposed tremendous costs on young people as they seek to map out their future as adults. Ensuring that youth do not bear the burden of pandemic's economic and social fallout for years to come requires the broader development community to put youth needs at the center of rebuilding efforts while working with young men and women as active partners in these efforts and supporting and building their capacity. More than half of the world's population is under the age of 30. Young people make up an especially large share of the population in developing countries, including ISDB member countries. Moreover, young people are seen as society's most essential resource with the potential to contribute significantly. As the world grapples with the unprecedented challenges posed by COVID-19 pandemic, there is an abundance of evidence and case studies detailing the proactive and leadership approach young people are continuing to show in their communities. A 2020 UN report reveals that although young people are some of the most affected by the pandemic's socio-economic impacts, they are also among the most active in global responses as frontliners, as health workers, researchers, activists, innovators, and communicators. Critical to empowering youth through meaningful engagement is providing them with support they need to succeed, including training, mentorship, facilitation, and coordination in order to further support youth to thrive in a complex future. They will need to be equipped with technical skills, such as digital and computing skills, as well as soft skills, such as empathy, personal resilience, the ability to communicate effectively, cultural intelligence, and decision-making. Since its inception, Islamic Development Bank Group has undertaken several initiatives focusing on youth development and empowerment. These programs are, however, only the beginning of the ISDB long-term engagement with youth in its member countries. In 2019, ISDB developed its first youth development strategy to ensure its future efforts and resources are directed towards the goal of youth socioeconomic progress in its member countries. The strategy has three strategic pillars: education, economic empowerment, and engagement. These pillars aim to empower youth to take action and responsibility in driving growth and adding value to the economic and social development of their communities. For a successful implementation of the youth development strategy, a 5-year youth development action plan starting from 2020 was also developed. In response to the pandemic, the bank has quickly adapted to the changing circumstances in member countries and prepared a strategic preparedness response program. Through this program, the ISDB is supporting job creation efforts in member countries. For instance, in Djibouti, ISDB is financing the strengthening of the economic resilience of vulnerable enterprises project, supports youths and women to engage in income-generating activities by providing basic skills and access to capital. A further example is the strengthening of the economic resilience of the vulnerable enterprise project in Palestine, where ISDB aims to provide working capital funding to more than 10,000 SMEs, of which 30% are women and youth-led enterprises by 2021. Further to this, the bank has engaged with youth across its member countries in highlighting youth COVID-19 response in a series of blogs documenting youth-related creative and innovative efforts and initiatives in various sectors and their approaches and components. The bank has also continued supporting youth in building their capacity through skill-building webinars to equip them to enter the post-19 employment landscape, which is foreseen to be more tech-enabled and will require young employees to have some level of digital fluency to be able to succeed in these roles. Mentioning this, digital economy is a chance. Digital economy is a chance for member countries which were left behind in its development to skip over several phases. And also it's a chance for the youth, who are usually more capable and more equipped to actually lead the future economy through digitalization of our SMEs. ISDB has very ambitious plans in this regards. Today, we will hear from experts in the area of youth development, as well as youth representatives who will explore the issues on how we can engage with youth more meaningfully as development institutions, and specifically in the context of post-COVID recovery, and shift away from tokenistic and ad hoc youth participation to ensure the prosperity of youth. I hope to also hear about economic and social outcomes and meaningful youth engagement, entry points, best practices, and frameworks to engage and promote youth as partners and leaders. Again, I would repeat, I am very sorry that I cannot consider myself to be youth anymore, but I will listen and I will follow. Last but not least, I would like to thank the youth organizing team for organizing this year's Youth Development Forum. Thank you for your participation and welcome to the 9th Youth Development Forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amir Bukvic, for your opening remarks. It was very pleasure to listen to your words. With a word, our keynote speaker, Mr. Jalalov Muzaffar Muhiddinovic. He's from Uzbekistan. He's rector of Inha University in Tashkent. Inha is one of the leading IT specialized universities in Tashkent. So, Mr. Muzaffar, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Jahangir, for welcoming and giving me a floor. First of all, I would like to highly appreciate Islamic Bank, Development Bank, and its representatives for inviting me to this wonderful event and giving me a chance to be a keynote speaker. It's a great honor for me. And secondly, I would like to add something more to my previous speakers, Mr. Amir Bukvich, that being a young youth, I think this is the more state of mind rather than just because the age is a number. And we all know that we can consider being youth because I'm 35. I don't know am I still considered as youth or not. However, I would like to say that you should not be so worried about your age because for youth and for all these young men and girls and boys, they need our fathers and all the brothers mentorship and their guide to become a person and not be also successful in some profession, but also successful in a life and understanding the basic moments of all the life matters. So as you know, probably tomorrow our country is celebrating 30th anniversary of independence. It's for us, it's a very big event and very big day when we as a country became independent. Maybe the word independent is very simple, which consists of one word. However, the meaning of this word being independent, independently thinking, independently making decision making, independently decide what to study, what to do, where to work. I think this is the very important and many more meaningful heights beside of this word. So taking this opportunity, I'd like to congratulate all the citizens, all the Uzbek people and others with this wonderful event. And well, last 5 years in our country, we and all the globe together, we have faced big changes, big reforms in all sectors, and not only if we consider now as education or youth or whatever is the economy or IT. So we can see if we, because I'm representing the education sector, mostly higher education, and let me give you simple numbers. And if we compare 5 years ago, I mean 4 years ago, being more exact, and now, I mean all these conditions, all this what created for our youth, for these young boys and girls. I mean, starting from the increase of admission quota at universities from 9% to 29%, only within the 4 years. I think this may be, again, just small number. However, it's very big hard work, which I can imagine what happened. And another example is the number of universities where our youth can study almost doubled. I mean, from 65 to 137. I think this is also a very big number that we can be very proud of, and see that how our youth are more this kind of chances are raising. So another one is the private sector development. I mean, before we even couldn't speak about private universities, private schools, private and private sectors development, and now we can see that how many private even universities are opening, and international branch universities such as Inha University in Tashkent or others, then their number almost tripled if we compare only 4 years ago. And this is how we can see the the government is paying attention to use. Another, I think the important thing that I have to mention is the special quotas at universities for girls, first of all, orphans and with disabilities, the boys and girls with disabilities. I mean, they're not within this 29%. This is the above of this quota. I think this is another big opportunity for our youth to study, and how many chances are given to them. And of course, another one I have to mention separately is the special government scholarships for international and private universities. I mean, we even didn't have such scholarships before. For example, Inha University is now this year having almost 50 scholarships, government scholarships. We didn't have it before. So, and this is if we talk about higher education. And if we talk about non-government education institutions, such as what Mr. Jahangir's, which is heading, their government is creating more and more conditions, such as the big preferences for education institutions, if they're opening their branches, their institutions in rural areas. This is the government is paying attention to rural areas. However, we can count lots of our achievements, but they're all, of course, we have to mention about the bad sides of pandemic, because of course pandemic affected. We cannot deny this fact that the pandemic didn't affect pandemic effect and still affecting many areas, including education. Besides all these changes, of course, last year schools and universities all over the world went distance, as we can see. So and still some countries they are still running online, and government, and last year, if you compare it on Uzbekistan, government nor youth were not ready for it. We have to admit it. And there were several reasons. Let me count these reasons and give my opinion. First, I think, is the absence of deployment and development of clear mechanisms, government policies and strategies on distance learning systems due to various available technologies in the market and different standards. I mean, the government didn't have a clear clue about how to deploy distance education. And second is the high-speed internet coverage and access problem, I think. I mean, digital gap between urban and rural areas still remaining, even it's decreasing year by year. Especially, we can see that the government promised by the end of this year fully cover the whole the country, especially the social areas, schools, universities, hospitals, and education institutions with high-speed internet all over the country. However, still, we are talking about access. I mean, to home or to every citizen. Another problem was that teachers and some professors, their lecture delivery and online education methodology problem. I mean, some teachers they didn't know how to deliver online lectures, even because the traditional education is completely different from the online education, and everybody had to they transform into online and transform their teaching methodology. For example, we did separately, for example, one day is fully online streaming and recording it, and once a week allowing students to have a communication with professor, or this kind of solutions. For example, our university tried, and other university or school, they tried another way. I mean, all over the world, country, we could see that the school classes were streaming on TVs on special channels. However, there were not back feedback or the back channel with every student or every pupil. So there were also some problem. Another one is, I have to separately mention, this is the last but not the least, is the students' self-study problem. Because so we all understand that pandemic affected in knowledge gaining and the quality of education. And even though we all live in digital era where through global network we have an access to knowledge, unfortunately, not everyone or every student were using it and still not using it properly. So it means that we have to more focus on our use to self-study and this kind of risk, how to act in this kind of difficult situations. Another big opportunity for our youth in gaining IT skills were opening IT parks and its regional IT education centers. I have to mention about this IT park that because almost 60% of our population is youth, and one of the easiest way and one of the possible way to easily educate our youth and focus there is IT education, because giving them IT knowledge and teaching them in IT development, software development or whatever is, I think, that one of the best way. For example, even you are staying at home, but you are still having chance to having and coding and working distantly. So in this kind of situation, IT parks giving the opportunity, for example, to use in regions, in every district, they're opening IT education centers, and our youth, they can, for free, they can study there, they can work there, they can have an access internet or 24/7, and I think this is a very good chance to our youth to gain the IT skills. Of course, one I almost forgot about 1 million Uzbek coders project. This is the Uzbek platform for developers. I think this is now more than 400,000 people were studied in this program. And this is, I think, big number. And in our university, almost 95% of students, they finished these 1 million Uzbek coders courses. So in the end, in my opinion, even we built more 100 universities or education institutions or centers, we still cannot cover all the youth. Furthermore, government doesn't have much money and time. So one of the solutions, in my opinion, is actively develop online education, especially first, what we need for this is a distance education standards. Still, there is no clear standards by government. I think now these days we are working on it, and hopefully government will take the related policies. Another is the online degree and non-degree programs. We also need to clearly define, I mean, how to gain the diploma, I mean, after education, because still our youth are looking at diploma, looking at the certificate, what kind of value it has, and etc. So, and of course, Uzbek language content, because still our most of population are Uzbek language related basis, and they need more online Uzbek content. And I think that nowadays it's very big changes that we can see, but still we have to work on it. So active participation of government and non-government sector are needed. So, and preferences for education institutions who are running distance education. I think that the government should support in the beginning, because whether it will be university or institution or center or academia, if we're going to develop the content and infrastructure or open the branches, so I think in this kind of field, we need, of course, as Mr. Amir Bukic mentioned, that soft skills is very important, because the soft skills development, it will teach our youth in communicating, because along with hard skills, they have to know how to communicate, how to talk to each other, how to talk with superiors, how to pass the interviews, because this is the maybe very elementary things, but unfortunately we can see these data, they're not so much well educated in this area. So I think that we also have to pay attention when we are creating the content in the soft skills development as well. So this is briefly what I was going to talk about in this section, and thank you very much for your attention. If there will be some questions, I will be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muzaffar. Today, Mr. Muzaffar is speaking as a representative of higher education in Uzbekistan, higher education sector. Apart from this, I can firmly support his words as being representative of, let's say, private education sector. I can say that private education is facing aggressive progress in Uzbekistan. A number of private learning centers, private schools, and private universities year by year is increasing, and this is kind of very good sign of development, I think. Okay, now let's move on to the discussion part. Now I'm going to give a word to our wonderful moderator. This is Mrs. Leah Mubayet Haidar. She is from European Union Trust Fund. Mrs. Leah, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me. Greetings, everyone.
Very good. You can start now. Thank you.
Thank you. Salam alaikum. It's my real pleasure to moderate this panel from the Islamic Development Bank on meaningful youth engagement. And I would like to actually introduce this session with a few quotes from young people themselves on what meaningful youth engagement feels like and means to them. I think this will be shown on screen as well, but the first one goes as follows. Young people are usually at the receiving end of what others prepared for them. Young people should be involved in programs, not just as beneficiaries, but as co-workers. Third, the key to success in meaningful youth engagement is that it feels like a real job to youth. So for context, these are very telling youth statements extracted from a flagship study on meaningful youth engagement published earlier this year by Plan International and the Youth Employment Funders Group with support from the City Foundation. As you know, Agenda 2030 and the SDGs made it clear that sustainable development is a whole of society approach, also relying on youth and youth organizations. But today, the COVID-19 pandemic not only just seriously undermined progress towards the realization of its goals, but also young people's ability to contribute to their achievements. So we're now witnessing worldwide the rise of an already job insecure lockdown generation of youth forced out of education, training, work, and participation opportunities, and who really are at risk of suffering the long-term scarring consequences of this unfolding crisis. So this is why now, more than ever, meaningfully engaging young people in ways that allowed to basically crowdsource and implement innovative youth solutions to development challenges is essential to help the world pursue its journey towards the realization of the SDGs. And yet, meaningful youth engagement practices today suffer from a number of limitations. For example, long-lasting and sticky norms and beliefs about youth, as well as a lack of readiness to recognize young people as equal and valuable partners for change, a lack of tools sometimes to support organizations in engaging young people strategically, and many barriers to participation for most disadvantaged young people. The good news is there are emerging evidence-based responses to meaningful youth engagement challenges. And according to that same report commissioned by the City Foundation, a systematized approach to mainstreaming meaningful youth engagement across the project lifecycle in youth stakeholders operations basically involves 5 key intertwined strategies. First, it's about guaranteeing youth diversity and representation, which really is about working inclusively with various youth actors that represent the program's youth targets, and fairly allocating development programs, roles, structures, and responsibilities among them. Second, it's about securing a youth engagement enabling project environment that is safe, that is engagement conducive, and that demonstrates accountability towards young people. Third, it's about developing authentic adult-youth partnerships that are built around shared project value creation, a sense of equal value, joint work between both generations, and of course, common norms, including trust and reciprocity. Fourth, it's about fostering quality youth participation across the program lifecycle, which is continuous, which is rights-based, and age-appropriate. And finally, it's about aiming at multidimensional youth empowerment, meaning youth self-empowerment, youth community impact, and youth system impact, which is youth capacity to successfully influence power dynamics. So this agenda session will now give us a chance to hear directly from key leaders and pioneers of the youth engagement movement about some of their own best practices in meaningfully engaging young people in COVID-19 recovery strategies. And to start with, we will learn now about joint efforts by the Islamic Development Bank and Microsoft philanthropists to digitally upskill young people so they are able to make the most of engagement and leadership opportunities in the post-pandemic world.
Please play the video. Thank you.
COVID-19 has created a global socio-economic crisis, forcing tens of millions of people around the world out of work. Due to school closures, lockdowns, and work from home, the pace of digital transformation has accelerated, creating a need for youth to learn new technical and soft skills to rejoin the workforce. As a prelude to the bank's annual Youth Development Forum, and in partnership with Microsoft Philanthropies, ISDB conducted a 5-day online training in 3 languages, English, Arabic, and French, to which more than 2,000 youth from around the globe registered. Here are some testimonials from young women and men who attended the webinars.
Hello, I'm Fatma Medina Daveci from Turkey, and I'm a high school student. What I found most interesting about this webinar program was time management, because in this century it's so hard to manage our day and time. In Youth Development webinar program, I've learned a lot about self-employment and digital and critical soft skills. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Adham Nassar and I'm from Saudi Arabia. I just graduated from King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals. What I found most interesting about the webinar was the variety of topics discussed in securing a job post-COVID-19. Topics such as critical soft skills, artificial intelligence, and the power of LinkedIn really helped me out.
Hello, my name is Warda Sheikh and I'm from Pakistan. I am currently studying as a student of psychology at Dar al-Hikmah University in Jeddah. The thing that I found most interesting about the YDF webinar was the last day where they talked about self-employment and the skills that you need in order to become successful, such as time management, self-accountability, etc. It really gave me a good framework as to what skills I need to learn in order to become successful, and I look forward to learning more about them. Thank you.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Namara Ali from Kriandongo Refugee Settlement, Uganda, and I'm volunteering with Witeka Peace and Development Initiative. What I found most interesting from this webinar was critical soft skills, where I am able now to communicate effectively and collaborate virtually. Thanks.
This skill-building training program is only the beginning. ISDB believes that educated, skilled, and engaged youth can shape the outcomes of COVID-19 recovery plans and contribute to building resilience to future crises. The bank will continue to engage youth and build their capacity, so that they are empowered to positively contribute to their lives and that of their communities.
Thank you. And it is now my great pleasure to introduce our 5 panelists for this session, including Farouk Amanov, Deputy Director of the Youth Affairs Agency of the Republic of Uzbekistan. Oladiwura Oladepo is co-founder and executive director of Tech for Dev, a non-profit organization that seeks to foster economic prosperity and decent work among youth through digital and technology skills building and advocacy. Chris Morris, head of the NGO and Civil Society Center at the Asian Development Bank, in charge of the implementation of ADB engagement initiatives with civil society. En'am Malkawi, lead youth development specialist at the Islamic Development Bank. En'am has extensive experience leading on youth empowerment and community resilience programs and strategies with international organizations, including the UN and government donors. And Rada Khalifa, Director of Philanthropy for Africa and the Middle East at Microsoft. Rada comes with an equally long experience of corporate public engagement responsibilities and private sector-led development initiatives. To all of you, thank you for joining us today and welcome. Thank you as well for sharing your insights on meaningful youth engagement strategies across major youth stakeholder organizations. I'm going to kindly remind you to please keep your presentations brief and no longer than 4 minutes each to allow for proper interaction with the audience later on. And for those of you who do have a presentation, the latter will be shown on screen as you speak. Farouk, to start with, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Distinguished participants of the forum, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me. It's my privilege and great honor for me to speak on behalf of the youth of our country. In our country, where the number of young people under the age of 30 is more than 55% of the population, much is being done to ensure that every young person can take a worthy place in society and realize their potential. Today, the state youth policy is implemented through the realization of the target state program, the Year of Youth Support and Public Health Promotion, which includes solving issues that concern young people, education, entrepreneurship, and employment, the organization of meaningful leisure, housing for a young family, and etc. In each region of our country, residential, creative, and specialized fundamentally new and their content schools have been created for students achieve high results at the most prestigious international competitions. As my colleague Muzaffar Akat said, the number of higher education institutions in our country has been brought to 131 and branches of 27 foreign universities have been opened. Taking into account that more than 130,000 university students live in rented apartments, the government has adopted a new program that provides for covering half of the rental costs with funding by the state. In addition, in 2021-2025, it's planned to build student campuses for approximately 100,000 places with the allocation of nearly $500 million for these purposes. Also, the Elior to Meet the Foundation was created in order to support talented youth and to meet the needs of country for highly qualified specialists who can compete in the global labor market. So regarding entrepreneurship and employment, so taking into account that 700,000 young people enter the labor market of Uzbekistan every year, great attention is paid to the issues of their employment. In this context, work with graduates of schools, professional and higher educational institutions is carried out in two directions. Support for youth entrepreneurship and employment through training in professions and skills. The allocation of more than 166,000 hectares of land in 2018 and 2021 contributes to the development of the country's agro-industry, so as well as the employment of more than 450,000 young people living in rural areas in agriculture. Within the framework of state program Youth is Our Future, soft loan funds in the amount of nearly $100 million so were allocated for the implementation of the more than 8,000 business projects, as a result of which more than 42,000 new jobs were created. At the same time, starting from 2020, a system of allocating preferential loans has been introduced to develop the service in cities and agro-industry in rural regions. Thus, this year alone, more than $200 million of preferential loans were allocated to support business projects of more than 92,000 young people. Regarding another spheres about our social protection, completely new systems of centralized work with the problems and initiatives of the younger generation are being introduced through the systems of the youth notebook and the youth programs. A dialogue has been established between the heads of local authorities and young people. Special regional youth funds have been created with the help of which at least 15% of the local budget is directed to solving the problems and needs of the youth of the regions. Taking into account that the electronic system use allows to solve the problems of young people on an individual basis only during this year, it was possible to solve the problem of more than 430,000 young men and women included in this system. So also in the period of 2018 and 2020, more than 3,500 young families actively participating in the social life of our country, provided with the housing by providing a preferential loan for a period of 20 years with an exemption from income tax of funds of individuals directed to repay loans. And dear friends, in conclusion, I would like to note that active dialogue between the youth leaders of the world's countries will open up the new opportunities for discussing the most pressing socio-economic problems of youth and modern challenges. Once again, I want to express my sincere gratitude to all the organizers for today's forums, the high level of organization, the Agency of Youth Affairs of the Republic of Uzbekistan is always ready for cooperation in youth policy, and it's open to all foreign partners. I wish you all good health, energy, and success in your noble work to support young people. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for your insight from Uzbekistan, Farouk. We will certainly pick up on some of these points later again during panel discussions. I'd like to now give the floor to Oladibura. Oladibura, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Leah, and good day to everyone here today. My name is Oladibura Oladipo. I am the co-founder and executive director at Tech for Dev, also known as Technology for Social Change and Development Initiative. I think that how I would start out first is that I am youth in age, and I'm also youth at heart. I just clocked 30 this year, so I'm very delighted to be a part of this forum here today. Just interesting information about myself briefly is that I do have a Master's of Advanced Management from Yale, an MBA from Lagos Business School, United Nations Solutions Summit Maker for 2019. I'm a Social Entrepreneur Fellow for Jacobs Foundation, and also an executive board of the Lagos Business School Alumni Association. It will be important to talk about what the work that Tech for Dev does right now. Just to give a brief about Tech for Dev is that we are a non-profit organization, and what we do is that we create access to decent work and entrepreneurship opportunities for African through digital skills and technology skills empowerment and advocacy. Our vision as an organization is to equip Africans with digital and life skills that foster economic prosperity, financial freedom, and sustainable development. And our overall broad mission as an organization is just to create opportunities and platforms for Africans to do access decent work opportunities and entrepreneurship, like I said earlier, digital skills empowerment and advocacy. Our tagline as an organization is ideally to solve the world's greatest problems in technology, but here we have a very focused area around advancing sustainable human capital development. Across the organization, we have 3 focal areas in terms of the type of digital and technology skills that we work on. We have the basic programs, we have the intermediate level programs, and the advanced level programs. For the basic level programs, programs are tailored towards providing basic digital education for like remote areas and underserved populations to ensure that we help to improve their digital literacy. Across this program, we've had some of the examples of some of the programs we've worked on and are currently working on is the Basic Digital Education Initiative that we're working on in partnership with Microsoft, which is supposed to help high school students in underserved communities in public schools to be able to access digital education, basic digital education. The plan is to be able to empower 500,000 young school children with this program. We've also have a basic digital literacy for northern and southern Nigeria, which we're currently working with FCDO and the UK Aid to empower 2,000 young people and people across vulnerable populations with basic digital skills. Our second level program are the intermediate level programs, and our intermediate level programs are tailored towards providing digital and technology skills to ensure entry-level jobs or career paths for people. Across these programs, we have, I'll just highlight two of the programs that we have. The first is the Women Texters Initiative. That is one of our intermediate level programs, solely focused on women. The idea behind this is to bridge the digital divide between men and women in the technology ecosystem, hereby providing women access to jobs and entrepreneurship opportunities. We're working currently on this in partnership with Microsoft as well. And then I will lastly just talk about our advanced level programs, which help to provide digital skills for people who are about to start more like mid-level career opportunities. And for this advanced level program, I will just highlight a program that we have upcoming later this year, which is called the Developer Factory. It's a 3-year fellowship program tailored towards undergraduate students in the universities, just to ensure that by the time the students graduate from school, they have right about 3 years experience to actually join the technology ecosystem. Once again, I'm super delighted to be here. I mean, with the work that it is we're doing, working with youth, and I'm very happy and excited to contribute towards this youth forum and share ideas around how our organization has been working with youth towards a meaningful youth engagement. Thank you, and over to you, Leah.
Yeah, you added
yeah, you're mute.
I was saying thank you so much for sharing this important work with us, Oladiwuha. We will now hear from Chris.
Okay, thank you, Leah. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And thank you, the Islamic Development Bank, for the invitation to join this Youth Development Forum today. And it's a pleasure to speak to the participants, especially the young people joining today. So I'm going to talk about ADB's flagship Youth for Asia initiative. Could I have the first slide, please? Are the slides on? I can't see the slides. Can I ask whether the slides are playing?
Not yet, I guess. Putting them on.
Okay. Shall I, let me continue, because I know time is very tight. So ADB's Youth for Asia initiative is a flagship initiative whereby we work with young people It's a team of young people within ADB that works supporting ADB's policies, programs, and projects to ensure that they're youth inclusive. The young people are empowered as co-equals in intergenerational partnerships, and that such partnerships are institutionalized and strengthened. The work of Youth for Asia focuses on intergenerational integration of meaningful youth engagement in ADB's projects, in generating and promoting youth knowledge and learning, and in driving empowerment and partnerships with both internal and external stakeholders. YFA, or Youth for Asia, leverages the voice and the insights and actions of young people. The voice of young people focuses on connecting young people with a diverse group of stakeholders to share and discuss issues which are important to them. Youth insights facilitate the generation and sharing of knowledge within our projects and within matters that matter to young people and the communities that they live in. And the actions are to mobilize young people on the ground to help the achievement of the SDGs. Are we still struggling with the slides?
Chris, can I ask you to please share your screen? We've enabled you to be able to share your screen.
Right. I actually don't have the slides with me. They were sent to you. But let me continue.
We'll just continue. Okay.
Let me just continue anyway without the slides. So I apologize for that misunderstanding if there has been one. Anyway, so action, insight, and voice of young people is the operational model that we use within Youth for Asia. And let me quickly share 2 or 3 examples of how the Youth for Asia team actually works. Firstly, a project on the Bagmati River Basin in Kathmandu, Nepal, where we mobilized a group of young consultants to train 200 young Nepalese youth in the SDGs and the 3 Rs in terms of pollution control. Those 200 young Nepalese then went out into over 25 schools and raised awareness amongst school communities and also developed projects themselves. We carried out knowledge, attitudes, and practices pre and post the program that showed a very effective peer-to-peer training of young people, and that over 50% of the young people continued in projects after the initiative. A second initiative that we just finished is where we built on the Youth Employment Funders Group MYE framework, and we developed a meaningful youth engagement roadmap for promoting water security and resilience, providing guidance on how to work with youth towards clean, healthy, and productive river basins. And a third example of the Youth for Asia team working with our operations is that in the city of Cirebon in Indonesia, we've just mobilized or developed a series of youth-led tools in poverty and social analysis, mobilize young people on the ground to carry out poverty and social surveys, to provide inputs into the Livable Cities Design project that ADB is funding there. And as across Asia Pacific, 50% of the cities are under the age of 30 in population. These youth-led social analysis provide a set of tools, but also good inputs into those projects. So let me just finish quick 30 seconds on the lessons that we've learned with meaningful youth engagement here with the Youth for Asia team. First would be to be intentional in engaging the least represented youth. Second, to deal with the attitudes and the norms of youth and adult relationships. And thirdly, to address the barriers. Leah mentioned the engaging environment. We must look at the barriers to ensure that there's an enabling environment for youth participation in the work. So with that, I apologize for not having the slides showing today, but I hope that's given a little bit of the insight of what ADB's Youth for Asia initiative is all about. Thank you.
Definitely, Chris, and thank you so much for this overview of ADB youth engagement work. I would like to now give the floor to Enham, who will share with us some perspectives from the Islamic Development Bank this time. Enham, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Leah, and thank you everyone for joining us today. So let me start with our youth development strategy at ISDP. So our strategy's objective is to have a productive and engaged youth, with focus on 3 pillars. We have education, we have economic empowerment, and also engagement. And for us, how we see these pillars, we see them as being interlinked, where we have education, skilling, and training, leading into economic empowerment and engagement. However, on the question maybe of engagement and skills, I think how we see that at ISDP, we look at 2 sets of skills that are needed post-COVID or in this era. So basically, we have first the occupational skills, and these are the regular skills that we have. We deliver in our universities, in vocational training centers, and sometimes in our schools. They are sector specific, and relatively, we could say that they are easy to identify and deliver. However, the second set of skills that we believe are needed now are the skills of resilience and agility. And so we all know that during the pandemic and in all the crises, youth proved to be the most vulnerable. They are more vulnerable than adults. And so we need to create that character, the resilient character. We need to create or to have resilient youth. And so what do we mean by a resilient youth? For us, these are young people who are able to bounce back after a crisis. They can change their direction or adapt when needed. Also, they are proactive, they are initiators, they are capable of continuous learning, and also they can thrive in the workplace. In addition, they are employable, they can increase their income, and they can engage in entrepreneurship and self-employment. And for their engagement, also they are resilient youth, are engaged in their communities, whether as partners or as leaders of development in their communities, as social change makers. And above all, for us, resilient youth are youth who have that sense of agency and also sense of efficacy. So if you look at this character, or these skills, we need them instilled in youth, regardless of the context of the sector they work in, or even the workplace or their lifestyle. And so what we need a set of skills that are cross-sectoral, they are cross-cultural, and definitely cross-functional, because these skills should be serving more than one function. And so, how can we identify? For us, how can we identify these skills? Basically, we need to look at the major trends we have, the major issues we have at the global level, and see the issues that impacting everyone, including. And so, what do we have now? We have the COVID, the pandemic. We also have the trend of accelerated digitization and the accelerated use of and absorption of technology. We also, and above all, we also have the climate change. And so what are the requirements, if we ask ourselves, what are the requirements for youth to not only survive this context, not only to survive a pandemic or a crisis, but also to thrive within this context. And so we identified a group of skills, mainly 4 types of skills that are needed in addition to the occupational skills. And these are self-development skills. And here we are speaking about cognitive, interpersonal, and leadership skills. We also believe that youth need financial literacy and financial management skills in order to enhance their financial inclusion and ultimately also enhance their resilience. We also think, as mentioned by the speakers, we need the digital literacy, we need also the digital skills, and finally we need green literacy and green skills. And we all know that this is an accelerated trend. We are speaking about circular economies. We are speaking about greening our value chains, and we are speaking about efficient use of resources. And youth have to be engaged in this. And how we can engage them? We need to deliver the knowledge and the values and instill the values in them, so they can engage in their communities and achieve also sustainable development goals and sustainable societies. And so on our side at ISDP, in addition, I think our CPO has already mentioned a few good examples of the work we do for young men and women, but I also would like to highlight some of the initiatives and the programs we are thinking of now. And they are still under formulation, but also since we have a young audience with us today, I would appreciate it if there are any reflections that young people can post it as well, or ideas they have, or they believe that these are good entry points for ISDP. But in general, what we are thinking of youth leadership initiative, and thanks. I would like to thank Mr. Amir here, our CPO, for the big support on this. We believe that we need to identify young leaders in our member countries like Aldura and Farouk. We have here young leaders with us. We need to identify such young people and also support them, whether through internships, trainings, mentorship, or even linking them with the private sector, and also granting them networking opportunities, in addition to supporting their initiatives to scale up or replicate in other regions or other countries. So this is one of the ideas. The other ideas we have is, or questions we have, is how we can transform training systems in our member countries. And to this end, we are now trying or designing a hybrid model where we can bring both the occupational skills and the resilience skills and agility skills together under one program. But as also I think Mr. Muzaffar mentioned, rightly said, he said that we need to pay attention when we are developing and designing these skills. And we are being here also very cautious about it. And this is why we are thinking of a pilot in one country. And then when it proves successful, when we are designing really very sensitive evaluation methods and psychometric tools here to measure the impact of such a hybrid model before we move to scale up or move to other countries. In addition, we believe engaging youth in green jobs is very important, and our approach to that is through linking with investments and investors in our member countries, and bringing youth around these investments, and also equipping them with the needed skills to benefit from these investments in their communities, in addition to also hopefully become engaged in climate action. And finally, I would mention that volunteerism is also for us very important. We believe that volunteerism is a great entry point for youth engagement and for their participation in realizing the sustainable development goals, whether at the community level, national level, or even at the global level. So maybe I will stop here and thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anam. We will be now moving on to Rada to discuss the private sector's approach to youth engagement. Thank you, Rada. The floor is yours.
Thank you for having me today. Okay, right. So at Microsoft, our mission is to empower every individual and organization on the planet to achieve more. As part of this mission, we have been committed to closing the skill and opportunity gap, helping skills, knowledge, and opportunity, helping everyone, especially underserved youth, women, and job seekers impacted due to COVID, to gain skills, knowledge, and opportunity to succeed in the digital economy. Looking at the accelerated digital transformation and need for upskilling, we take a holistic approach focusing on 5 pillars. We look at building capabilities of government to provide services for its citizens, especially underserved youth. We look at how we build capability of the government personnel, from senior management to first-line service providers. We look at the digital transformation of the services for government, and we look at policies and enabler environment to provide those services. We also look at how can we provide quality learning opportunities, both hands-on and online. And it's particularly important to build a culture of self-learning online, so that we can also scale the access for youth across the region or across the world, more so. And we also look at how to close the loop so that we create employment services and opportunities and give equitable access to everyone to economic opportunities, especially in the rapid digital transformation age. Youth is an integral part of our programs. They are part of the design phase of our programs. They help educate our strategies. They are a vital voice in all the policy and advocacy work that we drive. They are also enablers who provide a lot of value in peer-to-peer learning. So youth are partners. When we speak about public-private partnership, it's public-private youth partnerships. Without the youth being part of the equation, then we are missing a vital and an important voice that will really be able to completely transform the work that we are doing. Equally important, I think, is that we drive programs that not only have youth as beneficiaries, but youth as contributors. We have programs that we have run on digital transformation of nonprofits, for example, where we leverage youth volunteers from computer science background, and their contribution has managed to really impact the way that nonprofits operate, and also encourage nonprofits to adopt digital solutions and programs. I'm sorry, I am unable to, yeah, okay. We have some programs, some examples of programs that either address youth or use or leverage youth as we discussed. And one of those programs that address youth is our Global Skill Initiative. And this is an initiative that specifically addresses job seekers, as well as another program that we are doing with our colleagues from Tech for Dev, which Diwara is leading on, which is the Women Texter program. And it represents our focus on women equity. Again, youth are an integral part of all the programs and an important contributor to the success of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hada, for this presentation. These are really rich presentations, and I, like the rest of the audience, I'm sure have lots of questions. I will raise some of them now, and kindly asking you please to answer very briefly before we open the floor to our listeners. I also invite our listeners to please share any questions you might have for our panelists in the chat, so we can pick that up during the Q&A session. Thank you, everyone. Farouk, the first question goes to you. Based on Uzbekistan's experience with youth entrepreneurship, what would you say are key technical skills and key transferable skills or life skills that are necessary for youth to be able to meaningfully contribute to youth responsive changes in the policy environment for youth businesses? Thank you.
Farouk, you're on mute. Please unmute your mic.
Sorry. So I just thank you for your question. So as I mentioned, our state creates broad opportunities for the development of youth entrepreneurship. So recently, the president of Uzbekistan, His Excellency Shavkat Mirziyoyev, held a meeting with all entrepreneurs and announced new opportunities for the business people. Of course, this is an excellent motivation for young entrepreneurs. So first, here's some. Firstly, so I think the development of business skills from school age and increasing financial literacy among the young people could be a solution. If young people have entrepreneurial skills from school age, they will become specialists in the field of business, and in the future we will then be able to attract and adapt young people to political processes. Secondly, supporting at the level of ideas and teach them to project management. So in order to transfer from the ideas to the project, we are now receiving many projects from young people, and we have just announced the new project. The meaning of the project is support the youth projects and provide them with the knowledge on how to implement and manage their projects. So then, as a result, we could create trained and experienced entrepreneurs. So thirdly, it's supporting from families and communities. Family support to start and operate a business is one of the most influential factors in the ability of entrepreneurs to make a headway. So especially for rural youth, finding ways to engage and gain support from families and communities is very important. So firstly, developing business, incubating and accelerating activities in Uzbekistan. So we are looking for ways to encourage and support new business development, and in order to enhance economic development and create jobs in our country. And I'm sure that one of such mechanism of the entrepreneurial ecosystem is a business incubation and acceleration system, where so young entrepreneurs could receive the technical and soft skills. So finally, about the supporting the startups. So startups, as you know, play an important role in the development of technologies and the promotion of innovations. For young entrepreneurs, so obtaining access to the capital is essential to establish or expand their businesses. So unfortunately, these young people typically have the least access to ready capital. As such, development programs need to plan carefully and how best to support young people to get the fund they need. So this means truly examining different financial models and developing products tailored to the needs of participating youth. I think these 5 issues help us to be able to meaningfully contribute to youth responsive changes in the regulatory and the policy environment for youth businesses.
Thank you so much for this response. And now moving on to Ola Dibura. Ola Dibura as Executive Director of Tech for Dev. And based on your presentation, how do you ensure that leaders, employees, and beneficiaries of your organization are actually representative of the youth population you are serving? And in particular, how do you ensure the inclusion of perhaps more disadvantaged groups that may have multiple layers of vulnerability? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Leah. I think I would address the question from perhaps maybe 3 areas. And the 3 areas are more around for youth engagement within our organization. We look at how we enable youth through providing them or making them included in the process in terms of giving them the right type of roles and responsibilities. Then I also talk a bit about how we also include youth from a leadership and ownership perspective. And then I'll lastly just briefly talk about how we ensure that youth are involved from a diversity perspective. So talking about roles and responsibilities, it's very critical for us at Tech for Dev that we're able to have so inclusive voices in terms of opinions and insights being gotten from youth. And through that, in terms of roles and responsibility across the organization, we have our instructors being instructors and also like local project managers for our programs being 100% youth-led. We also have a situation where our beneficiaries, we ensure that at least 80% of our beneficiaries are actually youth across all the different programs that it is we run across the 3 focal areas. And also that across the organization, Tech for Dev is an 100% youth-led organization with 100% of the employees being youth. And that for us is very critical because it allows us to be able to have the voices of the youth within the program at every single level. So that's the first one on roles and responsibilities. The second thing is around leadership and ownership. And for us, it's important that if we are creating and if we're creating youth programs, that is important that we have the commitment of leaders who are also youth inclined, because when you have youth inclined leaders at the leadership level, then you're able to actually create programs that are impactful to the youth. And within our organization, for example, is that the entire leadership team is also 100% youth. That enables us to be able to strengthen our resolve and commitment towards ensuring that our programs can actually deliver value to the youth. The last bit is around diversity, and I'll look at diversity from 2 perspectives. I'll look at gender and I'll look at socioeconomic status. From a gender perspective, what it is that we've done is, and I know that Hada spoke about this just a few minutes ago, is that we do have a program that is focused solely on women, our Women Texas program. The program is just 100% for females, and that for us is a way to ensure that the youth, the young youth that are female, right, or the youth that are female rather, are able to be included like within our program, just dedicating a program towards them, ensuring that we're able to include them from a participatory perspective. Also, the other things we've done around sort of like diversity within the organization is the employee pool within our organization. Our organization is 68% female employees, and at the leadership level, we're about 57% women on the leadership level. That sort of just embodies our whole idea around diversity, from the gender diversity from that perspective. And from a socioeconomic status perspective, is that across all our programs, is that we ensure that our programs address about 80% of our programs are tailored towards underserved communities, marginalized communities. So that allows us for a balance in terms of, so we're not serving just youth within urban areas, we're also serving youth who are within underserved community, and that sort of fosters a sense of inclusivity. And for us across these three levels, the roles and responsibilities, the leadership and ownership, and also the diversity, helps to ensure that we're including youth and we're working actively towards meaningful youth engagement. Yeah, over to you, Leah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Oladibora. I'd like to now move on to Chris for a quick follow-up question as well. Chris, you mentioned Youth for Asia as a fully functional team of young people at the bank working to mainstream meaningful youth engagement in its operations. Now, how does the bank ensure that its working environment, its procedures, its policies are responsive to youth recommendations and are accountable to youth staff voices? Thank you.
Okay, let me start off by now I've got the tech working, sharing my first slide, and I'll stick to this one, which is very much linked to the question, Leah. The Youth for Asia is actually not a youth staff team, and this is a fundamental point. And it's also linked to what our previous speaker, Dewira, just said on Tech for Dev. If all the employees are youth, then what will be the situation in 10 years' time? Within ADB, it's a team of youth, but youth consultants. This core team is a revolving one, so it needs to be replaced. And that's essential because, as we've heard from multiple speakers today, young people have some specific characteristics which are beneficial for working with experts or adults in co-developing, co-implementing, co-generating projects, monitoring those projects together. And those core characteristics that young people possess are things like they're good at partnering, they're very open and transparent, they're inclusive, they're actually more caring, and there's evidence of this, as well as things like innovative, very resilient, energetic, tech savvy. So firstly, that's important because the enabling environment must be one whereby you can engage with a team of young people, but you have to revolve them over a period of time. And the average length of time for a Youth for Asia person is about 18 months. Second part of your question is responsiveness and accountability within ADB processes. Though the use of those words comes across differently and can be seen as aggressive or policing from an adult community. And therefore, one often needs to try and avoid a confrontational approach. But the meaningful youth engagement model is one where you're working young people and adults in an effective partnerships. And if it's working effectively, the team is accountable jointly. And therefore, it's a team which includes young people in an intergenerational working relationship with experts and adults with governments. And when that's working effectively, and we've got that enabling environment, then the team is effective, and therefore the development activities of ADB are responsive to young people and to our member countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris, for your insight on this. I'd like to now move on to Enham. Enham, about your presentation. So the Islamic Development Bank is now leading the way in a number of, in many aspects when it comes to meaningful youth engagement by also putting youth engagement at the core of its youth development strategy. So what kind of learning or knowledge management systems does the bank have in place to share this experience and ways to mainstream meaningful youth engagement institutionally with perhaps other multilateral organizations which would like to embark on a similar journey? Thank you.
Thank you, Lee, for the question. So, so basically, we have a number of platforms and methods to share knowledge and expertise with other, not only multilateral organizations, but also other organizations and development partners. So basically, first we have the Youth Development Working Group, and this is a platform where we have members from different multilateral development banks and other organizations and UN agencies, and where you could say that it's like a community of practice where we have the experts coming together to share and exchange expertise, and also sometimes we produce joint knowledge products together. Actually, our bank chaired this group in the past 2 years, and I think now our colleagues at the Asian Development Bank are chairing this group. Also, we have our own knowledge products and publications and guidelines, and all of them are published via our website. You can just go there to the ISDP publications, and you will find a big number of knowledge products in there. In addition, we have a number of agreements and joint action plans with other multilateral development banks and organizations. And within these agreements, we have specific components related to exchange of expertise and sharing knowledge and information. However, I would like here really to emphasize that this sharing of knowledge and information, our goal is not only to share with our peers. We also want to share with our member countries, and specifically here I'm speaking about youth entities and youth institutions in our member countries. And we look forward to this, to embark on a journey with them, to provide them with technical assistance where needed. And I heard also, I think Mr. Muzaffar mentioned that there is a need, I think, or issues related to the presence and implementation of policies and the strategies. And I think this is the type of work we would like, or think we would like to support our MCs. And in addition, I think we need to share knowledge and exchange experience with the private sector. And especially when we are speaking about their CSR practices, these are very important. And I think through working with them, we can provide a lot of technical support and experience to them, and also we can learn a lot from them for enhanced youth engagement. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you very much, Anham, for your thorough response. I'd like to now move on to Rada. Rada, again, based on your presentation, in your experience, how can partnerships for youth upskilling be made sustainable and impactful so as to create value and enable scalability? Thank you.
Thank you, Leah, for the question. We believe it's vital to develop the local ecosystem working with multi-stakeholders, inclusive of government, international development organization, and nonprofits, as well as the targeted beneficiaries. We are currently running an in-depth development program across 12 countries worldwide to ensure quality, accessible services for youth for skilling and employment. In Egypt, for example, we have been working over the past 10 years on developing the skilling and employment services provided for youth by the government, by the academia, and by nonprofits. We basically look at the ecosystem, what it provides, the gaps, how can we develop the program so that it provides quality, standard, international skilling opportunities for the youth, as well as how can we link that to tangible employment opportunities. We are very proud with the partnership that we have with the Ministry of Youth in Egypt, as well as the Ministry of Communication and IT and Education and others. The program over the past few years have benefited 2 million youth to date and have developed the capacity of teachers in public educational, trainers in over 700 youth centers, as well as nonprofits across Egypt. It provided youth with access to skilling opportunities from digital literacy to artificial intelligence, delivered through the government sustainable centers by government officials, by government trainers, as well as employability opportunities through job banks, for example, that has been established across youth centers, also run by the government with our support. Freelance opportunities, entrepreneurial opportunities. The idea is multi-stakeholders, multi-partners come together, bringing in their core competencies and working from the design phase on establishing a sustainable and scalable program that provides equitable access to opportunities in the new digital economy for the underserved within a national system. Thank you.
Thank you, Rada, for your time again, and thank you to all of our speakers, really. Time is running, but I'd like to give the floor to our audience very briefly. Perhaps a couple of questions. We might still have time for this. So I believe we have a very first question coming for Chris. Chris, somebody is asking if young people to engage in meaningfully engaging initiatives need incentives, in your opinion, if there are strategies, if there are initiatives such as cash assistance, for example, or assistance in kind that would be necessary for them to become fully motivated to engage in initiatives of that sort. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello. Young people, just like all of us, need a roof over their heads, and they need to eat on a daily basis. So when we engage in development with young people, they must be remunerated. Even volunteers should have a minimum subsistence level, and that's becoming standard practice within the development field, to recognize that young people are not a cheap alternative. They have particular skills, and as development organizations and governments, we must pay for those skills, even if we are providing certain benefits like training and the like. But the Youth for Asia team, as I say, they are consultants, and we look at local market rates, what young people would be earning in the market, and try and pay a reasonable working wage accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. We've got another question, perhaps particularly relevant for Farouk and Enram. So a young person from Uzbekistan is asking how she could be working more closely with young people at the Islamic Development Bank, how she can join them and work on international and local projects with youth leaders who would really benefit her country. Farouk or Enram, if you would like to provide your inputs on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Lian. Thank you for the question. Definitely. So, in our bank, we have so many programs to engage youth within the bank. So, first of all, we have the scholarships program, and youth can apply to this program when there is an open call for that. Also, we have a program for young professionals, and definitely also that we have on annual basis we open the calls for it. In addition, we have internship program where we have students from universities and colleges joining the bank for a few months. In addition to this, if there are young people engaged in civil society organizations, we have youth-led initiatives, and also we have a scheme for small grants to support youth empowerment in our member countries. And definitely, we also receive applications for these small grants, and definitely youth can send us anytime their applications for it. I don't know how we can maybe share the contacts or info for that, but definitely young people or civil society organizations can also send us on info@isdb.org for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Would anyone like to add anything to this?
Just a small addition, because question was addressed directly to the ISDB team, but in terms of the Uzbekistan and in terms of the agency, Youth Affairs Agency of Uzbekistan, I could say that we really highly appreciate, so we can invite him to our team. So we have lots of channels in order to support youth ideas, projects, initiatives through the different tools. That's why, so please welcome. So you can contact me through the Facebook, Instagram, and other networks. And also I just in chat, so I will write my email and contact. So please contact me. I will be in touch. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Farouk, for your availability. One last question coming in: how can stakeholders better prepare themselves to be more receptive to effective youth engagement and avoid tokenistic approaches to youth engagement? Anyone would like to comment on this? Ola Dibora, maybe?
Hi, Leah. Could you go over the question again? I was trying to look for it in the Q&A session, but I didn't see it.
Sure. So how could we, are there other ways for stakeholders to be better prepared to work with young people, to be more receptive to effective youth engagement, and to avoid tokenistic or piecemeal approaches to engaging young people? If you want to talk from your own personal experience, that would also be very valuable, of course.
Sure. So if I get the question right, is how stakeholders could be involved when it comes to meaningful youth engagement?
Or avoid tokenistic approaches to meaningful youth engagement and be very genuine about it. Are there ways that, you know, NGOs and other actors can better prepare for work with young people and include them, you know, in ways that are truly genuine and authentic and not just piecemeal?
Okay, so I would say that I think there are two things that come to mind, and I think the first thing will be more of an hands-on approach, where as opposed to being a bystander and just watching like these activities and talking about these activities, is actually being involved. And the way I would think about this is join hands with the youth. From a nonprofit perspective, for example, would be a part of like the initiatives, be a part of the program, come on the field work, right? Come on the field engagement, engage with the youth on the field, engage with the beneficiaries, understand what their problems are. And that way, when we're providing solutions, those solutions are very inclusive. I feel like that's one way that I think that, you know, if people could actually, or if stakeholders could actually engage with the field, not just like in their offices, right? If people could actually engage with the field, engage with the beneficiaries, engage with the youth on the field, that way they're able to get like insight that helps us to be able to create policies that work for the youth. I think that would be like the major thing. If I could think of something just real quick, is just that engagement. And the reason why I'm saying this, of course, is based off our programs, the kind of feedback it is that we get sometimes is people say, the beneficiaries say, for example, that the stakeholders are high up there. You know, we are making, like, people are making policies, they're making decisions on their behalf, but then nobody's actively engaging them in that process to understand what their problems are, to actually understand how to then tailor fit whatever decisions or policies are being created to the problems that actually exist. And I do think that that active engagement on the field with the beneficiaries, with the youth, actually will go a long way in creating policies that are more sustainable.
Thank you so much, Oladiwore. I think we could have gone on talking about this forever. Unfortunately, time is running. So I'm going to conclude here and start by thanking you and the audience for sharing questions and insights into what can make meaningful youth engagement work in the post-COVID-19 era. And we highlighted that meaningful youth engagement is contingent really on a number of conditions. And I'd like to pick up on the earlier meaningful youth engagement model that we touched upon and highlight how it can be articulated in a number of ways through leveraging some good practices from our guest speakers. First, in terms of youth diversity and representation, I think we heard from the ADB that it's about being intentional, and particularly intentional when it comes to targeting and including perhaps more disadvantaged groups such as young women or youth in peri-urban and rural areas, as we've heard as well from Tech for Dev. Second, it's about building engagement conducive program environments. And here we heard of the importance of making sure resources, including financing, as highlighted by the ADB, are really available for all young people, including vulnerable and disadvantaged youth. We also heard that at national level, this can translate into more active labor market policies targeted at youth aspiring entrepreneurs in countries like Uzbekistan. We heard about the provision of business and startup incubators coupled with preferential business loans for young people, loan repayment deferral mechanisms, also combined with other forms of social protection provisions targeted at youth. Third, it's about quality youth participation. And I think in particular, participation of all youth in initiatives, including young women, and again, other disadvantaged youth, has to be planned from the start, for example, in program research design, as highlighted by the ADB, but youth are also part of planning and design phases in Microsoft programs. Fourth, in terms of genuine intergenerational partnerships, I think one piece of advice we got here from the Islamic Development Bank from the very beginning is to listen to young people and make them really leading partners in discussions. Microsoft is engaged in youth partnerships and acknowledges youth as valuable contributors whose input can be transformational in terms of value creation in digital youth programs, digital youth employment programs. And at institutional level, it's also possible to take meaningful youth engagement partnerships to national level, as we've heard, by developing multi-stakeholder alliances with others, with governments, with the private sector, through communities of practice that can also translate into technical assistance and support to countries on these issues, as we've heard from our representatives from the Islamic Development Bank and Microsoft. And finally, youth empowerment at many levels. And I think typically here, the Microsoft Tech for Dev Women Techsters initiative we spoke about really illustrates here an organizational ambition, not just to upskill millions of young women through digital literacy, data science, and AI engineering training, but also to close a very gendered skills gap, and by doing so, impact community and labor market outcomes at both the social and economic level. So at the end of the day, I think this points to something really critical suggested by the Islamic Development Bank. Meaningfully engaging young people is also about enhancing human agility to respond to and to better recover from changes, including crisis, by fostering youth resilience, youth leadership, and youth know-how in addressing today's and tomorrow's challenges. And this will keep requiring hybrid, highly engaging, as we saw, but also multi-stakeholder skilling models that strongly harness not just young people's job-specific skills, but also digital, green, financial skills, and in fact, youth's whole indivisible development potential. So I think this is also what makes approaches to engagement, such as those suggested by Microsoft Philanthropies, also youth ambassador programs, youth advocacy, peer-to-peer learning techniques, or volunteerism, as we heard again, also from the Islamic Development Bank, I think really much more attractive, impactful, and meaningful. So we hope this inspires many more organizations to test, adapt, and scale up some of the good practices you heard today with youth to create enhanced value for all, and of course, an even bigger network of meaningful youth employment, meaningful youth engagement champions across the world. Thanks again for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank you, Leah. It was actually very nice to listen to you, to your discussion. And in terms of you, for example, you led it in a different way. I mean, the panel discussion, and I really like it. I hope that for everyone who's watching today's forum, it was very useful, because I've actually listened to different ideas to the regular problems, right? Different approaches from different parts of the world. It was very nice. Now, if you, with your permission, we can move to the second part of today's forum. It's going to be launching the Islamic Development Bank and UNDP joint knowledge product. With your permission, I'm going to give a word to CPO of acting CPO of Islamic Development Bank, Mr. Amir Bukvic.
Thank you. It was a very interesting and inspirational views and ideas that were shared today on the Youth Development Forum. And now it would be my great pleasure to introduce my colleague and a good friend, respectable Mr. Anes Aisami, who is an acting Chief Operation Officer at the Islamic Development Bank, and respectable Ms. Kani Vigna Raja, the UNDP Regional Director for Asia and Pacific. They will be discussing the importance of partnership in supporting youth empowerment in Islamic development member countries in South Asia and Southeast Asia, in supporting and advocating youth development issues through research and joint knowledge products. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Just to make sure that the voice is okay. I mean, can you hear me? Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much. I mean, maybe before I start, I wanted to comment on what Amir said about him not being any more young. Actually, in private, Amir, you always tell me you are young. And I think that that has been commented also. That, of course, it's all about mindset. I mean, the age is only a figure, right? So, dear Ms. Kani Vignaraja, UNDP Regional Director for Asia and Pacific, dear colleague, DG Amir Bikovic, the acting Chief Products and Partnership Officer at the Islamic Development Bank, dear panelists, dear brothers and sisters of the Islamic Development Bank Group, distinguished guests from all around the world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I would like to begin by thanking Amir Bikovic for his kind introduction. Please allow me to thank the Youth Development Forum organizing team and the Women and Youth Empowerment Practice of the Resilience and the Social Development Department of the Islamic Development Bank for inviting me to this momentous event. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by strongly emphasizing that youth unemployment is a global problem. which concerns nations around the world. However, this problem has been particularly accentuated in IDB member countries, where the youth, if we take them from 15 to 30 years old, constitute an estimated 60% of the population, and they are particularly vulnerable. Amidst the ongoing socioeconomic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, solving the global problem of youth unemployment requires us to embrace local solutions. The strategic pillars of the IDB Youth Development Strategy, namely employment and entrepreneurship, are critical in providing such local solutions for the empowerment of youth to enable our member countries to fully realize their potential and achieving their aspirations. Ladies and gentlemen, youth employment contributes towards the achievement of the sustainable development goals, and is without any doubt one of the main drivers behind attainment of other socioeconomic development outcomes in our member countries. Therefore, time for action is now. With globalization and the economic burden caused by growing unemployment challenges, especially with the context of COVID-19, a surge in youth entrepreneurship to generate employment is much needed in order to help the youth overcome poverty with new skills in a very challenging and dynamic labor market. So, what type of national and local actions are needed? To answer that, the Women and Youth Empowerment Practice in IDB, in collaboration with UNDP, is launching a series of country-specific reports on the state of the ecosystem for youth entrepreneurship. These reports will provide an analysis and a comprehensive assessment of 6 key domains of the youth entrepreneurship ecosystem, which either support or hinder youth-led MSMEs and youth entrepreneurs. The line of research will strengthen the evidence-based multi-stakeholders actions needed to make the entrepreneurship ecosystems more inclusive of youth-led enterprises. It will also contribute to guiding the IDB and UNDP's interventions in supporting and sustaining youth-led enterprises. More specifically, the evidence generated through this research will help guide the mainstreaming of the IDB Youth Development Strategy into our operations and projects at the country level, and to assist, inform, and guide in the formulation of key policies, procedures, and guidelines at the national level. I do believe this collaboration will also contribute directly and indirectly to the efforts of the member countries towards achieving the national development goals within the broader framework of the SDGs. It will transfer relevant and valuable development recommendations to the countries identified in this collaboration, as well as strengthen regional cooperation and integration. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, within the context of the strong spirit of synergy and complementarity between the IDB and UNDP, I'm very pleased to announce that earlier this year, the IDB Resilience and Social Development Department and our regional hubs in Dhaka and Jakarta and the UNDP, they have all jointly embarked on developing the first batch in the series of youth entrepreneurs ecosystem reports. This first batch composes of youth entrepreneurs ecosystem reports on 2 common member countries, one in South Asia, Bangladesh, and the other one in Southeast Asia, Indonesia. I look forward to the continuation of our efforts in forging internal synergies and collaboration, to the strengthening of our partnership with UNDP Youth Collab in the next cohort of countries in the region that will be selected for youth entrepreneurs ecosystem reports in the coming year, 2022. I assure with all sincerity that the regional hubs stands ready to collaborate closely with you, Amer Bekovic, and with UNDP to bring to fruition the next batch of youth entrepreneurs ecosystem reports. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, for the IDB Women and Youth Empowerment Team, and for the operations team in the regional hub of Dhaka, and for the UNDP Youth Collab team, and for their hard work and dedication in launching the State of Ecosystem for Youth Entrepreneurs in Bangladesh report. Please, I would like you to join me now in offering a round of applause to them, to all of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anas. It was very nice to meet you here and to listen to your words. And with your permission, now I'm going to introduce the next speaker. She's going to be Mrs. Kani. She is United Nations UNDP Regional Director for Asia and Pacific. Because of time differences, her speech is going to be recorded. And now we are going to watch the video.
Warm greetings. I am truly delighted to join the 2021 Islamic Development Bank Youth Development Forum for this discussion on how we can invest in and work with young people who are so essential to leading a COVID recovery and beyond. First, on behalf of UNDP, let me extend my sincere thanks to Anas Aisami and the Islamic Development Bank colleagues for partnering with us at UNDP on this agenda in the Asia-Pacific region. Now, we have mounds of data and research in the UN and outside that reveals how COVID has magnified long-run inequalities and injustices and inflicted heavy costs on young people's economic, social opportunities, their learning, their rights, and their overall well-being. The biggest cost the world will carry will be what this virus did to our young people. This I'm sure of. I'm not going to run through all the numbers, but I will refer just one. Our Youth Collab found that 92% of youth entrepreneurs in the region have been negatively impacted by the crisis. But this research also showed that it was these young entrepreneurs who were able to rapidly innovate and pivot their business models to deliver amazing solutions to deal with some of the rocks thrown at us by this pandemic. Now, I refuse to repeat that the future is in the hands of youth, for it is in your hands and our hands right now. And with all that we are facing, climate crises, conflicts, and COVID, it needs a mix of audacious ideas, a can-do conviction, and the wisdom that comes with tested experience to balance the scales again. Our joint research in Bangladesh and Indonesia identifies excellent entry points to strengthen the enabling environment for young business leaders and to even unlock some of the potential that they have shown through their entrepreneurship to do business differently. I look forward to hearing the key findings of the Bangladesh research that will be presented today. We plan to expand our joint research to other countries as well. and to use the findings to guide high-impact interventions in countries in the region. At the end of the day, the test will be in what we can deliver together. So I am delighted that UNDP and ISDB have come together to advance this agenda, and to do so with young people who will shake up our two organizations, as they should, and with new ideas and creative solutions, help us to test and scale and do things differently. This will truly show the demographic dividend at work. And with this effort, I'm convinced that we will be able to move mountains. So thank you.
Okay, we've listened to words of our next speaker, Ms. Kani. Now, with your permission, I'm going to give a word to our last speakers. They're going to be Ms. Sharia, Islamic Development Bank Senior Youth Development Specialist, and with her, there is Mr. Binyam. He is United Nations UNDP Program Specialist, Civil Society and Youth. Please welcome.
Thank you very much, Jahangir, and thank you to all of our speakers. Maybe just to shake up things a bit, since it's been quite, it's been almost 2 hours now, I'd like to ask us to if we can turn our cameras on. We'd like to take one last photo before Ben and I do our presentation to shake things up a little bit. So just we'll give a few seconds for everyone to turn their cameras on, to fix their hair, to smile, please, and give us a thumbs up or a little clap. And excellent, we have the whole team here. We have our panelists, we have our youth organizing team, we have our guest speakers, our keynote speakers. Everyone's cameras on. We're just waiting for 3 more cameras to go on. Teba, Firas, and Mr. Muzaffar, if you can please turn your cameras on. And our IT team, they're on standby to take our photos. Okay, you can go ahead, Ishraq, please. Can you please tell us? I'll just count 3, 2, just hold it 1 minute, please. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, great. Thank you so much. And we're going to move into the final part of today's session. So, once again, thank you everyone for such an informative session. And Ben and I, we're going to do our best to give you an overview and some findings on the ecosystem report on Bangladesh. A lot of the speakers, they all spoke about, the impact of COVID-19 on youth in general, but also just this general status of youth across the globe. The main issue being job loss and high unemployment rates, specifically in the context of COVID-19. However, youth entrepreneurship has the potential, and we've seen this over and over again, to reduce youth unemployment and support socioeconomic development outcomes. So with this in mind, last year, the bank and UNDP built on its existing partnership, and we embarked on exploring the youth entrepreneurship ecosystem in Asia through a deep dive diagnostic study on youth entrepreneurship and youth-led enterprises. We wanted to understand what are the factors that impact youth positively and negatively, and perhaps if we understand the ecosystem better, we can better support them. The study supports the delivery of the Islamic Development Bank's youth development strategy in its members countries, specifically in South Asia and Southeast Asia, as well as the Youth 2030 UN strategy on youth. The main objectives of the research was twofold. Number one, we wanted to generate evidence on actions needed to make entrepreneurship ecosystem more inclusive of youth-led enterprises, to make sure that any projects or any initiatives, they're based on evidence that has been found. And the second one is to guide the ISDB and UNDP interventions supporting youth entrepreneurship. 2 youth entrepreneurship ecosystem diagnostics have thus been conducted jointly, which was mentioned earlier, one in Bangladesh and one in Indonesia. Today, Ben and I will be providing the findings on the Bangladesh research. Over to you, Ben.
Thank you. Do we have the slides on? Or yeah, thank you. Wonderful. So next slide, please. Yes. Basically, a pleasure to meet all of you, and thank you so much for that great panel before. I think, as Sharia was just saying, I think we're summarizing a lot of what you've already said. I think Leah was able to capture a lot of the key messages also in the data findings. I think basically what we're asking us for in this study is really, what is the current ecosystem, and is it enabling? Is it youth inclusive? And here we have really come together to do this study when it comes to the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And I think this just gives you a little bit of a brief snapshot today. I think we can just go directly to the next slide. I think Sharia already covered some of this. Here, these are the 6 domains that we've been looking at. It really captures policy and regulatory framework, human capital and entrepreneurship culture, access to finance and incentives, business development support and infrastructure, and innovation and technology, access to markets. Sorry to read that very quickly. I think you have it in the screen. But this really, we believe that this collectively gives a good sense of what it is that we are trying to achieve here, and to see what, how youth specific these are, and how, you know, how responsive they are to youth needs. We're building on the integrated ISTB global value chain approach, but also building on other initiatives that are out there. But this is, to some extent, the methodology that we're using. Next, please. And what we have done here is, when you're looking at the entrepreneurship ecosystem, obviously there's so many different perspectives to it. So triangulating a multi-pronged approach to bringing the data together is what we've done, as you can see. But here, what is really interesting is that it's first of its kind segmentation of youth entrepreneurs, and it has not been done before. And here we are trying to unpack it by looking at different sectors in where these young entrepreneurs are engaging, as well as geography, gender, and enterprise type. And this is one of the key messages in the study, is really to disaggregate data so we know who have been left behind, who needs to be served. And despite all the fantastic efforts that we're seeing, who are not being serviced. So this is really an initiative building on the Youth Collab methodology, where it's an initiative co-led by UNDP and City. And it's really, we're looking at together with IDB to really scale it up across the region. Next slide. Here, I think what the data is showing is that we have over 3.8 million young entrepreneurs. It's a great phenomenal number, but still, Bangladesh has around 57 million young people between the ages of 18 and 35. So it's still a small component, but it can grow. It really is adding value. And what you see is across the different sectors of entrepreneurship, we're seeing that a lot of young people are engaged in ICT and tech related, and they are many of them are in urban settings, while agriculture and trading is more, retailers are in the rural areas. I hope that the report will be able to give you more in-depth light. This is just a teaser, and you will have the report in the next few days. Next. Now, what is really interesting is this snapshot. You know, what's working, what's not working, and this really speaks to what Olidiwaru, Farouk, Leah, and many others have mentioned in the past. One of the main challenges that we're seeing is the human capital and entrepreneurship culture. Here, we're seeing that supply does not meet demand. The skills component is really one of the areas where both young people and the ecosystem builders in Bangladesh are seeing that there's a need to strengthen. Lots of initiatives, lots of policies, but it still hasn't trickled down to curriculum. It hasn't really, there's still a skills mismatch. The areas of great progress is in innovation and technology. It's really exciting to see how Bangladesh has really taken off in that area. And as you can see, there's really hopefulness and energy in the youth sector among young entrepreneurs. And you can get a sense of where the strengths and weaknesses are right now. And this is where we hope that interventions will be done by all of you guys in this webinar. We really hope to team up together with many of you. Next. And as you can see, there's lots to be delved into. There's a lot of data that has come out of this study, both in terms of great progress that has been done by the government of Bangladesh, by the ecosystem players, but also areas that needs to move ahead. So there are numerous policies, numerous initiatives that cuts across all of these areas. It's really inspiring to see that the growth, the economic growth is gearing up to putting Bangladesh as one of the higher mid-income countries in the next 80 years. And the main message of this study is that while there are a lot of good policies and initiatives, they need to be a youth-specific lens in both the policy design and implementation. If that's done, then you can get more of the huge population of young people more involved in the economic growth in the sense that it can be more sustainable and more inclusive. I think that's our key message. I will not go into more details on this because of the time, but just giving you a teaser now that there are some really good insights in this study. Next. To you, Sharia.
Thank you very much. So this is really interesting, and I'm going to ask my my colleagues if they can make the link that's on the slide accessible, because to give you an overview of the Bangladesh entrepreneurship ecosystem, and this is basically what the link is a mapping of the Bangladesh entrepreneurship ecosystem, and we found that over the last decade it's accumulated an excess of $330 million in international investments from big name corporate investors and venture capital, especially in industries such as logistics, mobility and fintech. The emergence of active angel investment network, impact investing, host of local and international operating accelerators and incubators propelled about 1,200 active startups, and it generated more than 1.5 million employment. So this, the Bangladesh entrepreneurship landscape, which is the link that you can find here, is a useful tool to visualize the entrepreneurship ecosystem and to find the networks and relationship between the different enterprises and ecosystem builders. The ecosystem includes many different players who are working to build and establish the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And this tool basically gives you an overview of who the players are and in which sector they are in and what are the relationships they have between each other. The Bangladesh entrepreneurship landscape contains three main components. Number one, the ecosystem map, and this showcases the relevant stakeholders and players who are present in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. The second one is the Airtable, and this complements the ecosystem map by allowing the user to search up specific organization and get more in-depth information about the stakeholder of the ecosystem. And finally, the connection map, and this illustrates the various connections between the stakeholders of the ecosystem. Next slide, please. And then finally, and this is something that was mentioned a bit earlier, the ISDB focuses on how development can be driven by the competitiveness of industries connected to the global market through global value chains. And accordingly, the report also assesses the participation of youth-led enterprises in the following key value chain sectors: agriculture, education, healthcare, financial services, and ICT, evaluating, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, and presenting case studies of Bangladesh youth-led enterprises currently operating in these sectors. Over to you, Ben.
Thank you so much. And the next slide. So as you dig deeper into the findings that comes from these primary and secondary data, lot of surveys that we've done and interviews, we're realizing that these are some key recommendations that are coming up. As you noticed, young people are most hopeful about innovation and technology in Bangladesh, as well as the business development support structures. However, the areas that needs a particular emphasis moving forward is around human capital and entrepreneurship culture. So here, the first two recommendation is very much around skills. So while the government of Bangladesh has a great national youth policy, ICT policy, gender action plan, and SME policies, and a lot of these have been put in, it's still, as well as, a lot of, startup type of energy and activities going on, it still hasn't really trickled down to the curriculum level. Here we're looking at, vocational training center, technical and vocational training centers that need more of the strengthening. We need to see more industry, academia linkages. I heard a couple of colleagues speak about that before, because to ensure that the skills mismatch is dealt with. The second one is the capacity building opportunities. Really here again, we're looking at combining, strengthening the hard and the soft skills, so that we're not just training young entrepreneurs, but we're also getting them ready for market and expanding those beyond the cities, because the issue of rural-urban divide keeps coming up, and I've heard it many times in the previous speakers. But it's really an issue that when we deal with a lot of these programs and initiatives by government, by ecosystem, they don't necessarily trickle down to the urban areas, and that's something we constantly need to look into. The third recommendation relates more to the ease of doing business. Here, we're really recommending to have better coherence across government ministries to support young entrepreneurs, as well as a one-stop shop online portal for registration. We are seeing some red tape, we're seeing some bureaucracies here which are hindering young entrepreneurs from thriving. So this would be the third recommendation. Next slide. The fourth recommendation is really around pushing the finance institutions to trust young people more, to give opportunity for collateral-free, lower interest type of rates for your young entrepreneurs, easier payback terms. All of these things are making it very difficult for young entrepreneurs to grow and to scale. So here we're looking really at bringing more funders, more investors to work collaboratively in doing that. Moving forward, I mean, the fifth and recommendation is to make sure that all these great policies that are put into place really are youth responsive. We're seeing that that's still a gap, particularly when it comes to young women. The gender element is very, very stark. All the data shows that that's where more interventions need to be done. More data, such as this study, we need. I mean, we've heard all the programming efforts that you mentioned in the previous conversation, but what we need is more age disaggregated, geographically disaggregated sector and entrepreneurship type. because what we're seeing some entrepreneurship types are not getting support while others are. So really an inclusive lens into data collection. The last point I want to, the last recommendation is really around, again, making sure that entrepreneurs have access to markets. And here, again, the rural-urban divide keeps coming up as one of the areas where we need to strengthen, in particularly the agriculture supply and value chains, where we see a lot of absorption capacity to take in more young entrepreneurs. That's one sector we particularly want to look into finding a better solution for. So I think more to come. The report will give you a good insight. This is just a teaser, but I hope some of these key messages and data points respond to what you already have in mind, and let's work together to take them forward. Again, thanks to all the partners and Sharia for your leadership. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ben. Next slide, please. So just, looking forward and, planning on what's next. So what we're planning now is the national launch and the policy dialogue for these reports, the Youth Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Diagnostic Research for Bangladesh and the same for Indonesia. Development of interventions in Bangladesh and Indonesia based on the findings and based on the evidence of the research, and also monitoring their progress. Expansion of the ISDB UNDP Youth Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Diagnostic to 2 additional countries in Asia. And finally, the development of a toolkit sharing methodology and guidance on how to conduct a youth entrepreneurship ecosystem diagnostic, which can then be applied, this framework can be applied in other countries. Thank you so much for your attention. Like Ben said, we're hoping that this is just a teaser for some of the main findings and the area that the diagnostic report looks at. But once again, thanks to our partners at the Youth Collab and the UNDP for all of their support. Over to you, RMC.
Thank you, Sharia. Thank you, Ben. Actually, what I've just watched was a new finding for me as well, because when I was just getting to know about the event, I just saw its name and what was going to be discussed. But when we were just seeing this teaser, actually, I was very excited because lots of things has been done. The thing that you've done is very big, because this research can help not only to make some changes in youth entrepreneurship in Bangladesh or Indonesia, but in other countries which market, for example, close to these markets. And for example, in Uzbekistan, only for the last 5 years, there was very big improvement in terms of entrepreneurship in general and youth entrepreneurship. For example, there were lots of, let's say, privileges in terms of taxes, and even there were lots of, for example, grants for young entrepreneurship who were starting a business, and these kind of changes can be seen in our country as well. So I think for some organizations in our country, even for the government, this research also is going to be useful, I hope. And a short announcement: the full research can be accessed later this week. It's going to be available, I think, to the end of this week. Yes. And we are going to finish our today's forum. It was very big experience for me personally, because before that there were lots of different forums, for example, related to entrepreneurship, related to youth, but this was something unusual. And I think for everyone who were watching, this forum also was useful. I would like to thank everyone who participated, all the speakers, all the parties. Thank you for sharing your experience. Thank you for devoting your time. See you in our next forums and events. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you, colleagues. See you in Tashkent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.